Hi, my name is Luc Holland and my partner is Ankita Singh. Our presentation is going to be on saving face, which can be found on 428 of the Looking Out, Looking In textbook. In order to construct a good communication and working environment, we need to avoid attacking others. What this does is it allows us to preserve the face of the people we are trying to communicate with. When communicating, we want to develop a clear message. This clear message is composed of 5 main parts, which will obviously be touched on throughout the rest of the presentation. The main purpose of developing a clear message is making a message that is not threatening, is clear, direct, and lets you freely speak your mind and emotions. So the first part of a clear message is behavior, which is describing an event without interpreting it. So in essence, you're only recording information that is available through the senses and has nothing to do with internal thought. So in the healthcare setting, an example of this would be if I asked my patient to come and see me before he played soccer on his damaged knee, but I saw him and he had played 2 games last week. So in the example explained, there is only information that anyone could obtain from the example without interpreting the information, so it's just raw data. Now, interpreting obviously is going to be completely different, and this is the second part of a clear message of a saving face. Interpretation is a person describing what they thought the speaker meant through their behavior and actions. So basically, you're describing the meaning you have attained from the other person's behavior. This can be extremely subjective, and because of this, depending on the person's thought process, anyone may have a number of interpretations given for one specific event. So in their healthcare setting, there could be 2 examples that show you 2 different interpretations of more or less the same situation. So the first one would be, my patient must have forgotten about coming to see me before putting strain on his knee because he is just too intelligent to neglect something so important. That could be one interpretation, while another could be, my patient must not care very much about the future ability of his knee since he doesn't listen to me. He is a loose cannon! As these examples are subjective, the person's mood, expectations, knowledge, assumptions, and experience all have a factor in the thought process. A blockage in communication can result if the interpreted message is different from the intended message. So now we're going on to part 3, which is feeling. So feeling statements are defined in the book as an expression of a sender's emotions that results from interpretation of sense data. For example, when my patient doesn't listen to me, I think you find my diagnosis not important, and I feel disrespected. Obviously, that's a healthcare setting example. So still talking about part 3, we don't share our feelings because a great deal of anxiety can be placed on us when trying to express deep feelings to someone. Another reason is that we may simply not recognize the feelings that are really there. So going on to our 4th component, which is consequence. A consequence statement are the results that follow from either the behavior of the person to whom the message is addressed or from the speaker's interpretation of the addressee's behavior. And that was directly from the textbook on page 431. So there are 3 types of consequences: what happens to the speaker, what happens to the listener, and what happens to others. Cool little cartoon. These statements help you understand the positive/negative sides of another's behavior, and also the consequence statements help others modify their behavior. So when you state consequences, you limit the amount of interpretation that is needed from the other person. For example, when speaking to my patient, if you continue not to listen to my medical expertise and put your knee under strain, you may completely lose mobility quicker than you think. You can put this into your own words and feelings, however, in a healthcare setting, which my example is based around, it simply doesn't fit. The final part of a clear message is intention. Intention is basically where the speaker stands on the issue, what they want and what will happen in the future. There are 3 kinds of intentions: where you stand on the issue, requests of others, and descriptions of how you plan to act in the future. These intention statements can be driven from a single intention or the accumulation of many. For example, I want to tell you the truth about your knee, but I don't want to freak you out. Because the intentions can be complex, the message can get broken at this point, as the listener may be confused at what should be done. So in conclusion, by following these 5 components of a clear message, we will effectively be able to save the face of the people we are trying to communicate with. Thanks! Bye-bye!